We are now closing in on 4 months without a paycheck or unemployment payments for a lot of people here in the Valley. Again, we are talking about 4 months.
Yeah, that is a long time, and Nevada is facing a hearing early next week over a lawsuit that's really just asking the state to make its payments. Claimants are upset over no money and what they are calling false promises from DETR. 13 Chief Investigator Darcy Spears has spent weeks investigating where things went so wrong, and tonight she uncovers what a former insider calls negligent and appalling.
Avoidable delays, available fixes, experts waiting in the wings to help but never called upon.
They missed a lot of opportunity out the gate, and that's very unfortunate.
Former insider Steve Zelke says had leaders in Nevada's unemployment office taken control of this crisis, things would be much better. Instead,
it is imploding on itself.
And people who were approved for payment months ago are still fighting system glitches, jammed phone lines, and inaction. Here's what Zelke expected of the agency he retired from after 25 years.
In the face of the humanity, in face of tens of thousands of people that are losing everything because of system inefficiencies and lack of steady leadership, that someone would come in and say, we need to pull out all the stops.
Apparently that didn't happen, so this did. A class action lawsuit filed in Washoe County against the state's unemployment division, its directors and administrators. Tabitha Asare and Scott Howard are two of the named plaintiffs.
Tabitha made these masks for us, still not paid, and hit the pay button.
Tabitha turned her seamstress skills to mask making when COVID-19 closed her custom dance costume business.
I had to choose between the business and me and my daughter eating, and it's been really, really hard.
Scott was an Uber driver.
Maxed out my credit card, paying car insurance, car payments. Mind-boggling, and I haven't had any issues on my claim for over 6 weeks.
The lawsuit alleges failure to pay about 60,000 Nevada gig workers $500 million in unemployment compensation when due, which means as quickly as possible once initial eligibility is determined. Mark Thierman is the lawyer in the case.
The plaintiffs are not asking for money. What they're asking DETR to do is do its job, which, by the way, in this case, is pay money.
Like Tabitha and Scott, plaintiffs Elena Abing, Charles Plosky, William Turnley, and Isaiah Pavia Cruz applied in May and were approved for benefits, but never paid. When Isaiah got someone from DETR on the phone.
And she looked into my account and she said, oh, everything looks good. It was already reviewed. They just did not press this mythical button that says pay.
He was told it would just be a day or two. So were Tabitha and Scott. Then another week passed with nothing.
The lady tells us, oh, it's going to be 21 to 30 days. I don't know who told you 24 to 48 hours. They lied to you. She also told us that our claims were stuck in limbo. And that we shouldn't really depend on this money coming through.
Why did it go from 24 hours to 21 days?
Because of some glitch. They told us it was a glitch in the system to where the computer wasn't recognizing to actually pay us.
DETR has declined all of our requests for interviews, saying staff is too busy. Each time we ask about a newly reported glitch, we get the same response from the director's office, which simply says we're working with the vendor on reported items and monitoring the site.
Blaming the vendor is not appropriate. In my mind, they chose the vendor. They should be providing as much input and oversight on the program as the vendor.
On top of that, the lawsuit says DETR is misinterpreting and misapplying labor laws when it comes to the self-employed and gig workers. It says DETR's computer system flags claims for issues when there are none, and manual override can take up to a month. Steve Zelke says he knows how to fix that.
Use the technology that's available to them to run a mass change as opposed to doing them as one-off decisions.
The lawsuit also accuses Dieter of misleading the public about the actual number of unpaid claims. Zelke says Dieter was set up to fail.
You just can't put that many people out of work at one time on a program that was underfunded and understaffed and not expect some kind of a train wreck.
But he says administrators have compounded the problem, failing to use their authority to make blanket determinations to ensure eligible claims are paid more quickly.
And while the division has very good people working for them at this point, they don't have experienced leadership.
In April, the Employment Security Division was authorized to rehire retirees. Steve and others offered to help, but he says Dieter didn't bite, instead hiring inexperienced adjudicators. He can't make sense of it.
Had I been in a situation and faced with this kind of crisis, the first thing I would have done is picked up my telephone and called every retiree I could think of and say, what do you got for me? How do we deal with this?
As it stands now,
the people that answer the phone don't really give a rat's tail about, what's going on.
There's been no communication from Dieter, from PUA, from anybody.
Let us know what is going on.
Zelke says simple website adjustments could provide clear guidance on why payments are on hold and how to facilitate resolution. Then there's Dieter's claim that fraudulent applications are bogging things down.
I think that somebody is using that as a cop-out somewhere just to defend the lack of work.
Well, I ran the fraud unit for the state for a period of about 10 years.
Zelke acknowledges there is a lot of identity theft out there, but cites easy ways to address it.
For example, in the PUA program, they could have very simply required a person to upload a copy of a photo ID.
Other states, including Washington, New Hampshire, and Oregon, have called in the National Guard to help validate claims. Nevada hasn't done that. Scott Howard reached out to all Nevada state and federal leaders. Only 3 responded.
You're not getting my vote, and I'm voting for anybody else. I don't care if it's a dog running against you. You're not getting my vote.
Scott and Tabitha, who you just saw in our story, they actually both got paid within a day of doing that interview with us. Also, Charles and Isaiah, 2 more of the folks that we interviewed in our story, just got paid yesterday. So that makes 4 of the people we spoke to who are plaintiffs in the class action lawsuit who got paid after waiting for 4 months just within a few days of talking to us. Whether that's because they're named plaintiffs in the lawsuit or they talk to the media, who knows? Coincidence? I think not. But Tricia, after Dieter telling us time and again that they cannot comment due to pending litigation, they did just file a reply with the court that gives a lot of insight into why they say things are taking so long.
That's right, Darcy. And before we get to what Dieter is saying to the court, I want to remind our viewers here that we have been reaching out to the governor now about these issues for a one-on-one interview with me. And his office is just directing us back to Dieter's weekly press conferences and their briefings that they're having. I should call them press briefings, as they are. And due to the holiday tomorrow, Dieter isn't even having a briefing this week. Instead, we just got a press release literally a few minutes ago about paying more claims this week. So, Darcy, what are they saying to the court? How do they explain this delay in payments to thousands and thousands of Nevadans? I've heard from people across our state.
Well, Tricia, in addition to the sheer volume of claims in Nevada in a short period of time, the main issues that they cite are the need to confirm eligibility and also to ferret out fraud. They say they have to do that in order to comply with federal Department of Labor guidelines, and that if they don't, that Nevada could lose its CARE Act funds.
Okay, so the Department of Labor guidelines are the same for every state here, and some have paid 95% of PUA applicants. So why can some do this in 2 weeks? 2 weeks, Darcy, and Dieter can't do it in 12 weeks.
Well, again, they're going back to that claim of a lot of fraud. They keep citing a very high level of potential fraud in the PUA program specifically. And let me explain what that means. When you are a gig worker or self-employed or a contract worker, there's no other employer with whom they can verify your claims. So they say forgery and false statements are easy to make and also hard to trace.
Okay, so Darcy, basically that means while they follow up on suspicions here, the welfare of thousands and thousands of innocent claimants is in jeopardy here. And Darcy, as you know, many people are contacting us here at Channel 13 saying they've already been told they're eligible and they still have no money.
And DETR is saying that people are confused. They're confusing eligibility with what you might be owed. So let me explain that a little bit too. The state says that those letters that were sent out to people with an amount that they would qualify for were not actually approval for payment early on, and that the letters didn't mean that they'd actually been found eligible to receive pandemic unemployment assistance. That still has to be adjudicated in many cases. They're telling the courts that payments will be made as soon as administratively possible, and I know those words are not going to sit well with people, but they also say that if a judge forces their hands, then they would be forcing them to violate federal law. All of this, of course, is going to be hashed out in a Northern Nevada courtroom. The hearing is set for July 7th. Tricia.
All right, Darcy, I've seen also dozens and dozens of approval letters from people. Their case just sits there waiting to be adjudicated. And again, there's so few adjudicators for as many claims, and that's what's taking so long. But we have to have a better system here. These glitches have to be paid, hammered out so people can finally get paid, because they're in food lines. It's a desperate situation. Thank you so much for your report tonight, Darcy. We appreciate it. Todd.
Yeah, as we know, there's just so much heartache out there.